And then the party ended up going to a small town in the middle of Atlantia. They were called there because of some paranormal activity that was kind of happening in a loop in several people's homes. And it turned out that it was being perpetrated by a dark entity of a dark necro spirit of myth called the Hunter, who supposedly takes the souls of misbehaving children. And then the party ended up staying there in that town for a little while because there was more haunted paranormal activity happening there. And that brings us to you guys. Long after all of that, this was in the tail end of season 10 in 2023. This was where Bastille first came in. You dealt with a case with a terrifying creature that was terrorizing people in Apargo in Atlantia that was described as a creature with bat wings, a dog or horse-like head, hoofed feet, and serpentine tail. And Crystal sent you guys to investigate when the reports piqued her interest. And talk about that, Binary.
Well, I think one thing we should begin with here is, out of curiosity, to see the difference in things. How did Bifrost and crew, how did you guys often investigate things?
Do you mean that we were successful or not?
Like, were there specific go-tos you started with for investigating?
Asking a lot of questions. Usually we've
People,
got
I assume?
Pardon?
To people, I assume?
Is often as possible if there were people. Sometimes it depended. Like Tarek would ask questions of people and get really friendly with them, whereas Bifrost would ask questions of pretty much anything that could talk, including sometimes the evil creatures that they'd run into, the spirits, whatever else. Sometimes he'd hope that they would speak to. But yeah, that was always a fun one.
The reason I ask these questions and bring this up is because our party has Bastille starting even before Soma and after Soma joined. We like to do things a bit differently. We don't start with people. We start with the go-to smell of object reading. We'll object read literally anything. We find a wall with some marks on it. We find a tree with some claw marks. It don't matter what it is. We're going to object read and find out what's been going on there.
That's a good idea. Honestly, probably would have helped us in a number of situations. Plenty of claw marks on trees.
Which is very useful.
What it has resulted in is that Soma has spent most of the game at a constant level of 1 stress.
I get that.
Well, you've gotten stress. Bastille's no the worse for wear. Bastille's gotten no stress so far.
That could change.
It could. But will it?
Bastille's doing great.
By the way, El, isn't there some changes we'll be making to the stress system?
I think so. I still need to look at the stuff you sent over.
Yeah.
So Bastille joins the party. Very a new automaton, wondering, not really sure what to do really with himself truly whatsoever. Just trying to figure out where he even came from or anything about him. Crystal offers to help. And so that's how he comes across the group in Lodge, in which they go to research this creature that's off on this island that's since been, basically abandoned by civilization, which is truly what started the object reading. First, we checked a library. We did research a library first, to be clear.
Yeah.
In which Bastille, due to the couple of feats that I had chosen for him to make him more automaton-like, he's got eye for numbers, and another one that allows him to basically do skim reading of things. Like, he can read a letter without actually opening the letter. So between those two feats combined, he kind of walked into this library that was a chaos zone, found the book they needed that was journal entries about what had been going on, and then they went off into the forest, which they found some marks, found signs of the creature, which led to a big obsidian, or I think obsidian obelisk, It was a big obelisk either way, with a bunch of void writings on it.
So you ended up dealing with here what is actually a cryptid creature. Obelisk?
Yeah, the obelisk we found as well in the forest.
I don't remember that one.
That was the other entry. That was the other place that they found that they could go into the void potentially. That Bastille had brought up when they were trying to think of where ones were.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
There's an
That
obelisk
also
out there.
happened in Hilltop Valley. Are you thinking of that?
Maybe.
Or did you also find one when you and Frederick and Ryzen were hunting that beast?
Maybe. I'm possibly confusing the two times we've hunted beasts in a forest that was abandoned. To be fair, I was truly learning Pathfinder 2e. I mean, I still am, but at the same time, so keeping everything straight, difficult.
So you were finding a lot of Mystimon that were drained of life. You found hunters that were drained of life, and eventually you discovered that what you were dealing with was a cryptid, and
it was like a
this cryptid is actually the basis of what vampires are in this in Mystimon Saga. You were dealing with a cryptid Mystimon named Vampral.
Yes, the Vampral, I remember. This thing was like wasn't basically a giant vampire bat, essentially?
Yeah, it was a giant vampire bat, basically. The folklore said that it drained blood, but based on your findings, that is false. It actually drains mystia. The folklore also said that its victims would rise from the dead. That you also discovered that was false. But there's a grain of truth in every myth, and so you discovered that this folklorish creature was indeed real, and you dispelled the myth.
Yeah.
And that was actually how we ended up introducing Soma to the party, because she came in Hilltop Valley Killer,
in which our feats had been published. We were renowned for discovering this new Mystimon.
Yeah.
You were on the front page of every paper.
In which Bastille had truly no appreciation for.
Yeah, it's as I recall, Soma actually came up and was asking for autographs.
I had I had a clipping of the newspaper because I was already on my way to meet the Wayfinders Society. And so met you all on the docks in Atlantia, in Conaset, where you were all being inundated with fans begging for your autographs, and Bastille was giving everybody an autograph.
Yep, he was being asked to do things, and he does things he's asked to do. Look, for those that might have ever seen Flash, it was very much he was given tasks and he will complete those tasks, whether it be make friends or sign autographs.
Yeah.
And I will say, in Foundry, Soma still has in her inventory newspaper clipping with HA autographs on it.
So you joined the party in Atlantia in Conaset. And the party was also joined by Hyokun Kamuya, Kyrene's son. You were also joined by Kyrene herself. And you were also joined by Hyokun's girlfriend, Grissian. Girlfriend at the time, anyways. And you were to travel all the way to the northwestern peninsula of Atlantia, that it in a region that had been abandoned since the hordes of the undead kings, the 9 lich lords that basically control all undead, since they kind of ravaged the entirety of Western Atlantia. Western Atlantia has been basically uninhabited. And
for those that hadn't gathered, this was the one I was mixing up with the other one, as that was both long ago. I don't know how
this was the obelisk. This was where you found the obelisk.
Yeah. I don't know how Seth and Bifrost managed to keep all those different scenes separate. I truly couldn't. My mind is shot.
Part of it is that when I remember the plot, I can pick out the details. When I was vague, I can't. So yeah.
But yeah, we met Kauai and Ira, and we headed to Hilltop City in Hilltop Valley. Before that, I remember both Soma and Bastille basically, read some omens to try and kind of see what was in store for us. And Soma received an omen that was honestly pretty clear, considering that read omens can be extremely obscure, that just said, stay away from the woods. And Bastille, using ghost writing, ended up writing the word undead over and over and over and over. So, super, super not at all ominous.
Another feat I took from Bastille, one that people weren't sure why he had it at the time, but I'm sure they've got ideas now.
So we arrived at this ruined town in the airship, and this is also where Bastille used their incredible combination of eye for numbers, glean contents, and don't you have another feat that like adds in with that?
No,
Because I remember we've used this
numbers
a bunch of times.
And glean contents are the two that match together. The other feats he's got is the untrained improvisation, because that is just always great. And then the main other two I can remember is there's one that it's never come up. I wait for the day it comes up. But if a spell's ever cast on him, he can make an intimidation check basically to just say no. And if he succeeds on the check, the spell just doesn't work. It's such a funny feat, I had to take it.
So you were sent out here. You were sent out here to Hilltop Valley, where this ruined town called Hilltop City once stood, and.
Although before that happened, there were actually two pretty important scenes that I want to hit before we actually leave for Hilltop City, which is the group was approached by a woman who asked us to look for her partner, Wesley Branton, who went camping in that area and hasn't been heard from since. That evening before we left too, the king of Conaset, Antlin,
something like that,
took Kyrene aside because there had been rumors that an immortal whose name is Arthur, who she was good friends with, has been seen in Hilltop Valley, and she couldn't figure out what on earth he would be doing there. It may or may not have also been something of a surprise to her that he was even around.
Yeah, you never actually came across any sign of Arthur anywhere.
We did not.
But you did find what it was Zolgoth, and you had some words with him there. This was actually the first time Bastille had even met Zolgoth.
And he did introduce himself to us by name at his first encounter with us. So we did start out knowing his name.
Yeah.
he probably did expect us to tell Kyrene or Crystal and then being like, yeah, that's Zolgoth. So he figured he'd just get out of the way if I have to guess.
Yeah, I think Crystal was there with you.
Crystal was there with us. Both of them were there with us.
Yeah.
And Zolgoth, one of the very first things that Zolgoth said to us, was basically very much about his grudge against Kyrene. Both Bastille and Soma recognized his name because the Magi Guard had begun to link him to multiple serial murders, and kind of labeled him as one of the most dangerous men to walk Tirana. And Bastille seemed to recognize him.
You don't know why.
Yep.
We don't
know why.
I know why. He don't know why. That's all I can say on it.
And
it is very funny. As far as our way of investigating goes, though, because for everyone's reference, me and Elle had not conversed about both getting object reading. There was no discussion about that being a primary way of investigation. It just came about that we both happen to have object reading and constantly use it to investigate everything.
Indeed.
What's also very funny, and this is again something that hasn't really come up, but that I have talked with Binary about a little bit outside of the game, which is that both of our characters are kind of built around a backstory of having been possessed by ghosts to greater or lesser extents. Considering what we have learned about Bastille.
Imagine only having one ghost around.
Yeah.
Them rookie numbers. Gotta get your ghosts up.
As it turned out, you did actually find a connection with Kyrene there, because you discovered that the spirit that is attached to you as your patron as a witch is actually her mother's spirit.
Yes.
So I'm running a ghost home. I got a ghost apartment complex.
Yeah, I will. Soma is an abandoned house. Bastille's a frat house of ghosts.
Indeed. So
Maybe hotel. We don't know if they're checking in and out.
That's true.
So you discovered a lot of interesting things here, a lot of mysterious things here. You discovered signs of something being in those woods.
Yeah. So one of the things that Zolgoth mentioned, and we'd already been warned about by the various omens, was that there is something angry in the woods that is perhaps deadlier than him. One hint that we also kind of got about Zolgoth from this very first encounter was that he didn't leave any tracks, implying perhaps that he wasn't exactly there.
Indeed.
Yeah. And then we met a gunslinger named Cha, who had been tracking something in the woods for quite some time, believing it to be a void terror. Saw our interaction with Zolgoth and followed us at a distance after seeing Zolgoth disappear and recognizing that as something that wasn't a spell. And basically began stalking us. And that's when we went into the library and had our lovely little research session.
Yeah. A lot of research done there. And eventually you found the obelisk in the woods that that Bastille had mentioned earlier. And as you showed this to Kyrene kind of went crazy. Kyrene was like, no, damn it, this cannot be. And through some conversation, she told you that this is a shadow gate.
Mm-hmm. And we did also see, through our favorite spell, object reading, a man who looked like the description we were given of Wesley Branton finding the shadow gates, which Cha recognized as ancient portals left behind by a civilization over a millennia ago. But Kyrene had thought she'd sealed all of them. That the one in Cascadia, is that right, Seth, was the last one?
Yeah. She thought the one in Cascadia was the last one. She thought she sealed all of them. She did not know about this one.
And Crystal hadn't realized that some artifact that she referred to as the Black Door was something that Kyrene had known what it was.
Yeah. Kyrene knows what the Black Door is. And the Black Door is going to come up later. I'll say that. The Black Door is going to come up later.
We did encounter so we didn't leave yet then. We did some more research about what had happened when Hilltop City was abandoned and about kind of the history of the place. We found the ghost star Daphne Norris.
Ghost Star writer is Daphne Norris.
Yes,
it was revealed. It was actually revealed in Mother's Love that the Ghost Star writer is actually Daphne Norris. Daphne Norris was actually the previous form of one of the Lich Lords, Demios. But she hates that name. Do not say Demios around that Ghost Star.
And
because Demios was redeemed. Demios was redeemed, and she had a lot of guilt built up about everything that she had done as Demios. So she was reincarnated as this ghost star.
So she's been hanging around since then.
Yep.
And we continued kind of poking around. We found that there was a logging site south of town where there were kind of more weird stories than normal.
Mhm.
And that there were stories kind of about a sort of generic boogeyman from down there. And both Chaw and Bastille kept hearing this like tapping sound. Do you remember this, Bastille?
Vaguely.
And we went to go poke around there, and it was all very scary, and that's where we got this strange feeling of being watched. We saw this upside down tree with these big claw marks that looked like something had ripped it out of the ground and then slammed it back in. It had been there for at least 5 years. It was a bad tree. Tree had bad vibes. And this was the origin of this tree, and Soma attempting to figure out what was going on with this tree is the origin of Soma's obsession with Krosin, the Dragon Lord of Death. Because that's where I rolled a critical failure on my on whatever check I was trying to do there, and just became a little bit obsessed with this idea that Krosin has it out for all of us.
And
I don't know. Dragon Lord of Death can't be all bad, right?
And at the end there, a couple of things happened. As you guys were leaving, Crystal got a scroll that came with a photograph, a very curious photograph. And you also stood witness to Hyokun proposing to Grisian. And that is where Hyokun and Grisian became engaged. And you had some, I believe you had some interesting conversation with Kwoi about what marriage is.
Yes. We also saw Zolgoth walking towards the gate and then activating it and disappearing.
Yep.
And the photo that was received was a photo of the body of a woman flayed and mutilated, placed up on display in a temple with like scribbled writing underneath it. Are you ready to dance with the devil again?
Yep. That led us into Dance with the Devil. So a few years prior, in the summer of 2741, as the World Fair was shaping up to be one of the biggest events of the year in the world in recent memory, a series of grisly, bloody murders shook the community of Kalroon. These murders were not your ordinary murders, which the Magi Guard deal with all the time. These murders, which the Magi Guard were trying very hard to keep out of the press so as to not overshadow the World Fair, also were also flayed. These bodies were flayed and put on some sick display. And Crystal Dawn had a group of investigators working as agents with the Magi Guard, working as security with the World Fair, all the while secretly investigating these murders. And they eventually traced the murders to a hotel, and from there followed the evidence all the way to Agrabah and to a mansion there. And however, that case went cold as those investigators never returned. But Crystal could not shake the feeling that there was more to the story, especially at the mansion in Agrabah. And so this photograph shows up, and she explained to you all of this stuff about the previous murders and the Kalroon Devil, as the serial killer had come to be known as, hence Dance with the Devil. And you began your investigation into the Kalroon Devil. And you began with a lot of suspicion that Zolgoth is the Kalroon Devil.
Well, Ryzen had gotten from Crystal that Zolgoth had performed murders like this in the past when he was going by the Xenomancer.
Yes.
So we're not allowed to call him that anymore.
He hates that nickname. That was a nickname that was brought up by the tribunal way back in the day. Stay tuned for the recap of seasons 1 to 6, the tribunal era. So go on.
We had Crystal had an informant in the Magi Guard, which are otherwise pretty hostile to the Wayfinder Society and the Hidden Archives.
Mm-hmm.
And so Crystal had set up some time for us to go meet them. And in the meantime, we poked around Fox Hollow Ranch and I think looked up some various, I think here might have been where we found some initial Bifrost's notes, but we also found Matameo's notes and massive conspiracy board.
Yeah, you also saw. You also bore witness to Spooklar terrorizing Coco.
Yes. But this is where Laurie Torwin first came up for us, because Matameo was investigating her.
Yes. So then you ended up going to Calroon to meet with Deslin Bolera, aka Skinny. Yep.
Getting the skinny from Skinny.
Yep. And
Bastille did see Laurie Torwind in the tower and a flash of light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least
in an object reading.
Yes, of Matameo's stuff.
As is the way of discovering anything. Object reading. Just ask the papers around.
So, I'm not sure how far we got there with Dance with the Devil before the season finale.
We have a little bit more. The next thing that happened was while Soma and Bastille were researching in the Wayfinder Society Tower in what's the name of the city? Calroon. Esther went to the Colosseum, saw some political stuff happening, and then we met Esther at the Museum of Antiquities, where we heard about the case that resulted in the death of Bifrost. And Esther and Soma were forcibly ejected from the museum. And we realized that this was one of the locations of one of the bodies. This was also where we learned that Kyrene was running for a council seat.
Yeah.
And we went to visit Skinny, who had quit the Magi Guard that very day, but did manage to get us access to the Palace District, as well as a little bit more background. And so we got some more details about the murders, and she warned us against Lieutenant Commander Lavarsus, one of the Magi Guard, who is a pretty speciesist guy. And we got to the Temple of the Gods in the Palace District, where this most recent murder that we'd received the photograph of was from. And Bastille, do you remember your bits from here? You found a lot of stuff. You found a lot of stuff in this temple.
Yeah, so this is the one where we found the person kind of like splayed out, and there was the broken window. Yes, the broken window that we
I don't think
followed.
The person was there, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so we found the window. So essentially, we found a window, and Bastille, thinking that either this was the means of entrance and escape, or one or the other, followed it, and we found that it was in fact a means of escape that then led to a council member's building, the council building, in which we might have secretly broken into. But it's okay. We didn't break down doors like people I've heard are doing in other times of trying to get into places. No, Bastille just created a hole in the wall with passwall, and so we just kind of walked our way in which we discovered that there was a book that was missing. That definitely wasn't good to be missing.
And we found a secret door.
We did find a secret door.
That was where it was missing.
I think this is also where you got your stress.
One of many places, yes.
Yes. But I think this is first.
I think this was the first stress, yes. Because there was a book of Black Mystia arts connected to the Ancient Ones and the Void, and I think that that's where I used the object reading to see, and it was a big lock with an eye, and I come out of it like, it's looking back at me. Because it ended with us.
I did say Soma keeps very, very copious notes.
Yeah, sorry, one page away. So yeah, we continued to follow the footsteps in the trail, and we found designs drawn on the marble floor in void script, where someone had tried to cast a conjuration in the middle, like outside of Kyrene's office. And that was where we found the Necromivore, where Bastille cast see invisibility and saw the shadow creature with 6 red eyes snarl and disappear.
Because he can cast it every hour on the hour. So he can, for 10 minutes every hour, see anything invisible.
And then you cast Locate and learn that there is a Zolgoth in Calroon. You all headed out running after to track that down.
There's a reason she says a Zolgoth.
A Zolgoth. Running to track that down. Meanwhile, Kauai came frantically running into the Wayfinder Society Tower because Ira was missing. And Crystal told Soma and Ron to go find Ira because Crystal has been having dark visions of tentacles and storms. And that was where we ended that season, with Bastille and Ryzen and Esther racing across the city to confront Zolgoth, while Soma and Ron ran back to Fox Hollow Ranch to try and find Ira before something terrible happened to her.
Yep. And we will pick up that recap for the season 11 recap in the season premiere of season 12.
Woo.
And that will be...
It's kind of wild realizing how much has happened in the last year.
Yes, indeed. So we will pick that up in the season 12 premiere. I hope everyone is having a very lovely holidays. Merry Christmas to all, and Happy
It's
New
all
Year.
A good night.
That would be an interesting way to end this. Happy New Year to everyone, and I hope you will join us for the season 12 premiere, and see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Flip side.